So speaking of close quarters, Trump Sunday night said he learned a lot about COVID, but moments later he decided to, ride past supporters. But I want to play you a little bit of this audio. This is Donald Trump.
He also said that he was going to be visiting those supporters in the middle of that video. You didn't mention that.
Well, we're going to be playing a little bit of audio for you. And so this is Donald Trump Sunday night.
He said, I'm going to give my supporters a little surprise. And then he drove past with the Secret Service.
Okay, yes.
So he did let people know via Twitter, where that video was posted, that he was indeed doing something.
So the people that he didn't tell was the press. He didn't tell the press. He didn't tell the press corps, which is what we just talked about with Deborah Saunders.
The press treated Donald Trump extremely poorly.
Okay, well,
and spent the majority of the weekend trying to honestly make it seem like Donald Trump was as sick as possible. It was a very, very embarrassing weekend for the press.
That's not true.
Especially mainstream. You know, that is very,
That's
very
not
true.
true. There's no member of the press that was lying or trying to make it that the president was more sick than he was. In fact, it's the opposite, and we'll get to that. It's the doctor that tried to make the president sound better than he actually was, and we have proof to play for you.
You actually think that Donald Trump, so he was diagnosed with this on Thursday. They're tested every single day. Everyone that went to that Rose Garden massacre, as they're calling it, the super spreader event, they were tested that day. You think that Donald Trump's symptoms went from no symptoms at all the day he gets tested, which is on Thursday. So he gets tested Thursday, and suddenly he's nearly gravely ill within 2 days with COVID-19. The virus doesn't move that fast, Brian.
Okay, so according to Donald Trump's own doctors, which, by the way, backtracked, I'll play you a little bit of that audio instead. So this is Trump's doctor, cut 3, Sean Connolly, who Sunday revealed that Trump was on oxygen despite earlier statements. Have a listen to this.
Late Friday morning, when I returned to the bedside, the president had a high fever, and his oxygen saturation was transiently dipping below 94%. Given these two developments, I was concerned for possible rapid progression of the illness. I recommended the president we try some supplemental oxygen, see how he'd respond. He was fairly adamant that he didn't need it. He was not short of breath. He was tired, had the fever, and that was about it. And after about a minute, on only 2 liters, his saturation levels were back over 95%.
So here's the problem with the doctor's statements. This is Trump's doctor a day earlier who says Trump was never on oxygen. Have a listen to this.
One thing, has he ever been on supplemental oxygen?
Right now, he is not on oxygen.
I know you keep saying right now, but should we read into the fact that he had been previously?
Yesterday and today, he was not on oxygen.
Okay, so it's not a doctor's responsibility to spin. He was asked a specific question. This is the president of the United States. The public deserves to know. And the doctor withheld information. Now, if the doctor answered it and responded by saying, well, I'm not going to give out this pertinent information because of blah, 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 okay, fine. But don't hold a press conference if you're not going to answer those types of questions. The public deserves to know how the president is doing. And then we go to this Joyride. Now, regardless of whether he put out a video that says, I have a surprise for my supporters, any reasonable human being that is a doctor would tell you when somebody has COVID in their early stages and just tested positive several days ago, it's probably not a good idea to be out in public and be surrounded by other people. That's why you need to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. And as even those in Donald Trump's own administration, including his own task force, are saying, minimum 10 days, minimum. So we have an attending physician at Walter Reed. His name is Dr. James Phillips. This is what he said about that Joyride. He said, quote, every single person in that vehicle during that completely unnecessary presidential drive-by just now has to be in quarantine for 14 days. They might get sick. They may die. For political theater, commanded by Trump to put their lives at risk for theater. This is insanity. That presidential SUV is not only bulletproof, but it's also sealed against chemical attack for good reason. The risk of COVID-19 transmission inside is as high as it gets outside of medical procedures.
And he had a mask on.
If I just finish the statement, the irresponsibility is astounding. My thoughts are with the Secret Service forced to play. That, again, is Dr. James P. Phillips, an attending physician at Walter Reed.
Okay, so if he had a mask on and everyone in that vehicle had masks on, we're assuming that the Secret Service is, they're probably anywhere from 28 to 40 years old, most likely in very, very good shape, most likely not high risk for this virus. Of course, he doesn't mention that because why would he? He's trying to attack the president again. But if Trump had a mask on and those people in the vehicle all had masks on and masks work, then what is the concern here? There was also a doctor that said there was a very, very, very small risk in what was considered a joyride, and it wasn't a joyride. He was driving past his supporters who were out there. He also sent them pizzas. He also sent them chocolate. He waved at them because the mainstream media was pushing this narrative that Donald Trump was very, very sick. And Donald Trump, the reason he made those public appearances was to prove that he was not very, very sick. Absolutely it was.
The trip was necessary.
I believe it was necessary. Yes, of course I do.
All right, so let me give you...
Now, had the Secret Service been 75 years old and high risk, that would be a different story. If he went with a couple of senior citizens and decided to have them drive him around, that would be totally different.
Okay.
But again, what's not being factored in, and this is happening on purpose, is the fact that the Secret Service is most likely young and in pretty good shape and not high risk for this virus, Brian.
Okay, so first of all...
Nobody ever mentions that.
Okay,
because
so...
it's all about just attacking Donald Trump because he wants to show some strength and under these circumstances. And it's very odd to me that, by the way, if you're 96%, the standard of oxygen saturation, a good is 92 to 96%. If you're 96%, you're nearly perfect. Donald Trump was at 94%. The reason that they put him on supplemental oxygen is because he's the president of the United States, and you want to do whatever you can to protect him under the circumstances, Brian. But I find it very, very hard to believe that he got this virus on Thursday, and within 2 days, within 1 day, his fever has hit 101 to 103. I wonder if there is some type of issue with the testing going on right now. Because, like I said, everyone is tested every single day, and they test positive every single day. And then suddenly this virus with an R0 of 1, which means that this virus, if you have the virus, you have a chance to spread it to one
JD,
person. That's what the R0 of 1
Here's where you
means.
are positively not factually accurate.
I'm not being not factually accurate at all.
If I can please finish my statement.
Yeah, please
Thank
do.
you. He didn't get the virus on Thursday. He tested positive on Thursday.
So you're telling me, by that logic, then, if you get the virus on Tuesday and you test negative 2 days in a row, then you could be giving the virus to other people?
Yes.
Over those 2 days?
Yes, that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of the scientists and the doctors.
Then by that logic, nobody can be doing anything in the country right now.
Okay. You just said he had the virus.
Do you understand that?
Okay, you got to let me talk
now. If you test negative for a virus...
Okay, you got to let me respond
and you're tested
everything you just said.
Even for sports. The same thing would apply for sports.
Okay.
The same thing would apply for anything where you're tested every single day.
Talk to the doctors if you don't believe me.
I'm saying by that logic, assuming that's true, then you can never really know if you have the virus or not.
Number one,
because
it is true.
There's an incubation period of 2 or 3 days where the virus doesn't show up on a test, but you're positive and you can actually infect other people.
So you got to let me interject now, okay? Because you said a lot of things that I could not disagree with more. First of all, if you think it's necessary to give some of Donald Trump supporters pizzas and give them a little wave, and you think that's a symbol of strength, I could not disagree with you more. And that's the opposite of strength. It's stupidity.
No, it's not.
If I could please finish. If I could please finish.
The entire country was on pins and needles. Trump supporters.
If I can please finish. I didn't interrupt you. You spoke for 5 minutes. Please give me more than 30 seconds.
I just spoke for 40 minutes before I finally spoke for 5 minutes, Brian.
If you would like to start the show and set up the show and help me with interviews, you're more than welcome to take over that. I offer it to you every single time. You could have asked Deborah Saunders any question you like. You sat there, you didn't ask a question. That's not my fault. That's your fault. Agents have tested positive for the virus while traveling, by the way, for the president's political rallies. That's a fact. That should never have happened. One current Secret Service agent who works on the presidential and first family detail said after Trump's drive-by, by adding that those agents went along for the ride would now be required to quarantine. This person said, I wouldn't want to be around them, the agent said, expressing a view that multiple people at the Secret Service also voiced in the wake of Sunday's appearance. He said, quote, the frustration with how we're treated when it comes to decisions on this illness goes back before this, though. We're not disposable. Another veteran Secret Service agent also expressed deep dismay at the Walter Reed ride through was sympathetic for those around the president, given the difficulty in pushing back on the commander-in-chief. You can't say no, the agent said. A third agent said it was simply reckless. These people have done this for a living.